What's up, guys? Danny from Geeks of Doom, and I'm back with the MCU Rewatch, and we have reached Phase 2 of the MCU. We are into 2013, and what a year it was for Marvel films. Iron Man 3 and Thor: The Dark World. Yeah, 2013 is not my favorite year in the MCU. And again, I want to stress, I don't think there has been a bad MCU movie, but I do think there have been some that are not great. And some of them are going to have to end up towards the bottom of the list when you do the rankings. And 2013, I don't think gave us the best films. First up, in Phase 2, is Iron Man 3, picking up pretty much where the Avengers left off. Tony Stark has survived the Battle of New York. He has a near-death experience at the end of the Avengers. He carries the nuclear weapon into outer space, and he barely survives. And he is suffering from PTSD. He's having panic attacks, anxiety attacks, and it makes the first 30 plus minutes of this movie really interesting, watching this super cocky, super confident hero having these intense mental health crises. And tonally, I really enjoy the first part of this movie when it deals with Tony dealing with the anxiety and the PTSD. In Iron Man 2, he was dealing with the idea that he was dying from the palladium poisoning. Now he's dealing with a new situation that he's completely not used to. This movie was directed by Shane Black, and I have a lot of friends who are very big Shane Black fans, and I am told time and time again that Iron Man 3 is one of the most underrated MCU films, and I politely disagree with that. I think Iron Man 3 is fine, but I do not love this movie, and in fact, I would go so far as to say it is the only MCU movie that actively irritates me. Actually, that's not true. Age of Ultron also actively irritates me at points. But I think that's a better movie than Iron Man 3. Iron Man 3, it starts with a flashback to 1999. At a science conference, we get a cameo from Yinsen, the scientist who Tony meets in the cave in Iron Man, who actually tells Tony in Iron Man, I met you before, so it's a cute little cameo there. And Tony meets Rebecca Hall, who is Maya Hansen, a botanist, and she's working on the Extremis project, and you meet Killian, what's his first name? Aldrich Killian, played by Guy Pearce. And he is this just over-the-top looking, he almost looks like a cartoon character. He's limping, he almost looks like he's the most stereotypical nerd. And it really kind of kills it for me, because this is another one of those tropes that you will see in comic book movies time and time again. That awkward, weird scientist who gets wronged by the hero, and their entire thread, their entire plot, character arc is, I want revenge against the hero for not taking me seriously. You'll see this again in the MCU. Mysterio in Far From Home, Spider-Man Far From Home, actually has a collection of people, scientists, that were wronged by Tony Stark as his army to create the images that he fights in that film. We also see this in Amazing Spider-Man 2 with Jamie Foxx as Electro. We see this as earlier this year with Wonder Woman 1984. Cheetah was just an awkward scientist who was wronged by Wonder Woman and set out against her. And it's a really tired superhero movie trope, comic book trope at this point. And I think Aldrich Killian, for me, he just doesn't do it for me. I think he's bottom tier MCU villains. And I think you see that really, Iron Man 2, the bottom of the barrel for me is Mickey Rourke's Whiplash. And now you have Aldrich Killian. Going into this movie back in 2013, all the appeal of this movie going in the previews, was the Mandarin storyline. That's the elephant in the room here, is the Mandarin bait and switch that this movie pulls. I'm not going to lie. When I first saw this movie, I absolutely hated the bait and switch of Ben Kingsley as an actor, Trevor Slattery, and he's just donning the character of the Mandarin to make this facade of terrorism so that Killian can sell and create extremist weapons. Having rewatched the film a number of times, the bait and switch doesn't bother me anymore. I'm fine with the bait and switch. The thing that bothers me the most is the way the bait and switch is handled. When you meet Trevor Slattery, he's a drunken idiot who stumbles out of a bathroom making smelly poop jokes. I started this review by saying that Tony has undergone a character shift, and he is having panic attacks and nervous breakdowns. He has to use the Iron Man suit to regulate his heart rate because a kid drew a picture of the Battle of New York, and he's having these awful flashbacks. And the Mandarin bait and switch on its own, I don't love it. But then you add the poop and fart joke aspect to it, and the half-naked girls dancing around on the bed. It makes the film so tonally inconsistent. There's scenes where good scenes between Robert Downey Jr. and Ty Simpkins, who plays the young kid Harley Keener in Tennessee, where he kind of takes up the role of being a father figure for him, which really cool. I like those parts of the movie. I like the socio-political aspects of Rhodey, Don Cheadle back in this movie, playing now War Machine has been recast as the Iron Patriot, and the President of the United States is involved, which leads me to my next issue with this movie and this is a problem that I have kind of continuously throughout Phase 2, is once you have established the Avengers team up, after that film ends, Thor takes Loki back to Asgard. There are still 5 Avengers on Earth. And the President of the United States is kidnapped in this movie. If that is not a reason to bring Captain America in, or S.H.I.E.L.D. agents, Natasha and Clint, Hawkeye and Black Widow, Mark Ruffalo's Bruce Banner has a cameo in the post-credit scene, which, by the way, is done as a complete joke. The post-credit scene doesn't set up any more movies, doesn't hint to any cool things in the future. It's a one-note joke of Mark Ruffalo falling asleep to Tony's boring story, which he's narrating from the very beginning of the film, which I kind of feel is an appropriate summation. The movie is also 2 hours and 20 minutes long, which makes it, or 2 hours and 15 minutes long, which makes it almost as long as The Avengers. The Avengers needs to be 2 hours and 20 minutes, 2 hours and 30 minutes, because those are the team-up movies. The Avengers films are longer. The individual films don't have to be that long. In fact, Thor: The Dark World, which I'll talk about in my next video, and I have plenty of issues with, is actually one of the shortest MCU movies. In fact, I think aside from the Hulk, it's the second shortest, Incredible Hulk, it's the second shortest MCU film. And that works to its advantage, because it's not a great movie, and there's less of it. I sound like I'm being hypercritical. So let me talk about some of the positives of Iron Man 3. Gwyneth Paltrow. I love that they finally gave her some real meat and potatoes. She gets kidnapped, she gets injected with extremis, and she has a legit hero moment. In fact, she pretty much is the reason that Iron Man doesn't die in this movie, is because she saves his life. Which at the same time, she's like made to look like she dies, and then like 2 minutes of screen time later, she returns. So you don't even have time to process that. To give you a comparison, her death and return scene reminded me a lot of Chewbacca in Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker, where they do this, oh my god, the ship blew up, Chewie's dead, I can't believe this. And then like in the next scene, Chewbacca's there, and you're like, oh, it was the other ship that exploded. Give us some time to feel something before you just erase it. But I did like the way Gwyneth Paltrow was handled. I really enjoy the final, let's say, third of this movie. Once you get past the Trevor Slattery Mandarin nonsense and you get to Killian's plan with the president on this like cargo vessel in the water, and Tony brings all the Iron Man suits together, and he's jumping in and out of different Iron Man suits to fight against these extremist injected villains. Really cool final scene. Shane Black, I have my issues with Shane Black as a filmmaker, but the guy knows how to do action movies. He knows how to do action sequences. They're usually the best parts of his movies. Aside, unless you like his brand of, humor. I'm not a big Shane Black fan. I like some of his films. I don't love all of his work. I'm a diehard over Lethal Weapon person. So I think that's where you can, if you love the Lethal Weapon movies, you're going to love Shane Black. I've seen the Lethal Weapon movies, and I don't really have a use for them because Die Hard exists, and I'd rather watch Die Hard up until pretty much anything after part 3. I like the supporting cast of this movie. Like I said, you have Ty Simpkins, does a really good job as Harley Keener. He would be back later on. Guy Pearce is fine. I just don't like the Killian character. I did like Rebecca Hall. Big fan of Rebecca Hall. Wish she had more screen time in this movie, and I wish maybe she was kind of an alternative villain. Ben Kingsley is Ben freaking Kingsley. He's an Oscar winner. And again, the previews, when you saw the previews in the theaters for Iron Man 3 and you heard that voice doing this character, it really wrangled me in, and I got really excited about a character that I didn't really know I cared about in the Mandarin. I suddenly cared about it until they pulled the rug out from under me. And but yeah, the scene in Tennessee, the whole Tennessee scene is very fun. And you get some, Shane Black Christmas stuff, which is nice. Yeah, that's Iron Man 3. It is not my favorite. I know that a lot of people really enjoy this movie. I know that a lot of people think it is an underrated gem of the MCU. It's not for me. It's going to be towards the bottom of my ranking. The way I basically described it to my son is it's better than Iron Man 2. That is without question. Better than Iron Man 2. And having watched this and Thor the Dark World back to back, like I said, I think this is a better movie than Thor the Dark World. But Thor the Dark World is about 20 minutes shorter. And if given the option, I think I would rather take the shorter movie over the longer movie. But that's just me. I know this is probably my most controversial opinion about an MCU movie. Where are the Avengers? what... I know that there's reasons. You know, my son tried to say, oh, well, they say that they talked later on and they said, oh, well, Captain America was doing this at the time, and it's retrofitted. Like, there's no reason in this movie why Captain America couldn't be there. He's Captain America. The American president was kidnapped. How is he not there? But that's a problem with Phase 2. You know, they hit the jackpot with Avengers, and now you gotta kind of ease your way back into these kind of standalone movies, and it was a rocky start for them. 2013 gives you Iron Man 3 and Thor: The Dark World. Not my favorite year in MCU history. Luckily, after that, though, Phase 2 does improve because you get Captain Winter Soldier and Guardians of the Galaxy back-to-back. So there's stuff to look forward to. So, on that note, next video will be Thor: The Dark World. I am not going to shit all over that movie. I don't think it's very good, but I will try to say some nice things. And we'll keep steamrolling through Phase 2 of the MCU, counting down until May 7th, when Black Widow comes out in theaters. We will have franchise rankings, Falcon and the Winter Soldiers on Disney+, Episode 2 coming up later this week. So this has been Danny from Geeks of Doom, and stay tuned for our next video coming soon.